is a quick presentation on translation memory and how it works. Let's start by defining it. So translation memory is a smart database that sits alongside human translators. So that's a very important point. It's a complement to human translators. In other words, another term for it, you'll often hear computer assisted translation. Basically, this database just memorizes all of the translation that's committed by the humans that are assigned to a project. It's important because it allows for increased consistency across projects and increased savings. So it saves you time, saves you money, and also increases consistency across projects. It isn't machine translation. Oftentimes people will hear computer assisted translation and think it's machine translation, which is something like Google Translate or one of the other popular systems out there for machine translation. It is not that. Another added bonus for translation memory is that it also captures your reviewers' changes. So if your content is reviewed by subject matter experts, any suggestions they have will automatically be captured in the translation memory. And you should always remember that the translation memory should be your property. In other words, as a buyer, you should be able to request copies of your translation memory on certain periods. You could say quarterly or annually, or whatever you work out with your language service provider. So let's talk a little bit about some of the language or the lingo that surrounds translation memory, or the concepts of translation memory. There's the first thing, which is 100% match. So think of it this way: you have two different documents and there's a sentence, in this case an apple, that are identical. So you have a sentence that's the same in document A and it's the same in document B. That's known as a 100% match. Then there's a repetition. So a repetition can occur even within the same document. So if the language service provider has never done any work for you, but they do an analysis, they should still be able to come up with repetitions. This is especially true for technical documentation. You might have warnings that repeat throughout the content. So that would be considered a repetition. It's the same sentence that occurs in the same document or same set of documents in a project. Then there's fuzzy match. So a fuzzy match in this sense is it's a very similar sentence. So let's say you have a sentence with just one word difference, and you have it in document A and then you have it in document B, or even later in the same document. That would be considered a fuzzy match. So that's sentences that are very similar. All of those sentences get discounted to some level. There's also a context match, which we didn't cover, but a context match is the same sentence, but it also has the same previous sentence and the same subsequent sentence. So you have a very, very high level of confidence that it's exactly the same. So here's an example using text. So a fuzzy match would be something like, you see these two sentences are very similar. Please select the print option to print out all the selected reports. The only difference is someone came along and changed select to choose. And then of course below you see 100% match, which is the same exact sentence repeated. So let's dive in and see what this looks like in a translation management system. So the reason that a translator is able to leverage these matches or this database is because of the technology. So here I'm showing you the translation management system that we use here at Argo. It's called WordBee, and these tools have very similar functionality. So what did we do? We used a sample document, and it was this photo release form. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the first version of the document. So very simple document, and what we did is, just to illustrate this, is we added a sentence and we made a modification. So if you look, I highlighted this is a new paragraph, and then I changed an age from 18 to 21. So what does that look like? So let's take a look at the first version. You'll see that this is the translation environment. You have the English on the left, and then the target language, or the Spanish in this case, on the right. And what you see in this window are the translation matches. Again, because this project's already been completed, when we click on a segment, the translation memory, a request is put into the translation memory and you see the matches. Remember how I talked about context matches? That's also called a 110% match. And again, because this project was already translated, we're querying the database from the completed project. So you'll see that this is a 110% match because the sentence before and the sentence after are identical. Okay, so let's fast forward. This document's completed. All the content was committed to the memory. Let's see what that new content looks like. If you remember from the Word document that I showed you, if you'll recall, I stuck in this new paragraph, and you'll see that it's blank. So when we built this, it just basically leaves this as blank. There's no hits to the translation memory. In fact, even if there was a terminology hit, for example, if the word paragraph was in the term base, which is the glossary part of the translation memory, you would see a hit here. So the translator would then need to just fill that part in. And of course, you'll see these sentences were identical. So now those are all being propagated from the translation memory. And then let's go take a look at this sentence. So what you'll see is the translation management tool is actually quite intelligent. And when you have just a numeric change, it'll fill it in for you. But do you see how it highlights in yellow the difference between the sentence and what was in the memory? And you'll see it here. So you see this was a 99% match. So this is a very high level fuzzy match. And the only thing that needed to be changed was the age here. It had to be changed to 21. And then once this project is done, you just commit it to the memory and you'd be ready for subsequent upgrades. So that's our presentation on translation memory. I wanted to quickly show you a way that you can see this in proposals. So you should get a detailed breakdown from your translation provider. So for example, in the quotation, you should see the total number of words, and it should tie back into a gross cost, much like you see here. And then there should be another section that lists all of your repetitions, your 100% matches, and your fuzzy matches. And that should also be tied back to a cost. And if it isn't, you aren't getting the level of transparency you should have. This is incredibly important. All too often, I hear from clients of ours that they get a very generic quotation with no level of transparency in terms of the translation memory utilization. And your vendor just isn't doing you any favors. You really need to have this information. And last but not least, that should boil down into a net cost per word. If your vendor is doing their job properly, the cost per word should decline over time. So as you see in this example, the cost per word is down below 10 cents. It's 8 and 9 cents per word, which is a steep discount compared to typical base rates. So that's our presentation. Should you have any questions, please consult our website at www.argotrans.com or our blog where we have a lot of informative articles on translation memory, or give an account manager or project manager a call as well. Thanks for your time.